Hello, my astrology friends and family. This is Lada from astrolada.com, and today we are diving into the 7, almost 8 month stay of Mars in the sign of Gemini. Mars usually passes through a sign in about a month and a half to 2 months, but rarely once every 2.5 years. It stays for about 7 months in one sign only because it turns retrograde. And this year, 2022, Mars will stay for 7 months in the sign of Gemini. The last time this happened was in 1990 and a little bit of 1991. So this is very rare, 22 years ago, that Mars was so long in the sign of Gemini. So stay to listen what to expect to happen with the world, and then we'll cover each of the 12 signs of 12 ascendant, whatever you're using, and how it will affect you personally. So let's try and kind of unfold what Mars in Gemini can signify. Well, let's start a little bit with history. I always love to go and see when was Mars retrograde again in Gemini the previous years and what happened then. It will give us an insight. And as you know, Gemini is anything to do with media, with transportation, with education, with social activity, like people getting together, social interacting, with writing, with speaking, with business and trades and commercial interaction. So all of those things will be strongly impacted and changed because the Mars is the planet of innovation, but Mars also likes to break down walls. So if there's some walls or old structures that need to be destroyed, Mars is a wonderful destroyer with a sledgehammer, bam, bam. So sometimes it can do it through crisis. So we can see in such areas of life that I mentioned, education, businesses, transportation, infrastructure, internet, media, sledgehammer action there, walls breaking down, something being innovated. But first, before you innovate, Mars comes, and because Mars is a planet of innovation, it's new energy, it's fresh, but it's also very ruthless and vicious. To do the innovation, it does not care. It comes with the army, it creates some crisis, and then it brings the innovation. That's a favorite formula of our the forces, our elites, So they will try and use, because they're master astrologers at the highest levels, they might try and use this Mars energy to do their agenda. Well, God has, and the light forces have their own agenda. So let's see what can happen. But first, let's see what happened the last few times Mars was retrograde or stayed for so long, not just retrograde. Mars becomes retrograde from October the 30th to January the 15th. This is when the events will escalate, but they start now, especially from the shadow period, the beginning of September. So from September 2020 to almost April 2023, those things will unfold collectively in the world and in our personal lives. So I rolled back the dice and I rolled back the astrology and I said, okay, when was Mars retrograde in Gemini? Let's see what happened. And the most recent time was in 1990, November till January sometime in 1990. But the whole process again started from the middle of 1990 till the middle of 1991, the whole duration of Mars. What did we come up with? The moment Mars enters Gemini was in 1990, military action against Iraq for USA is improved. So USA enters a war, and the military actions especially escalate around the retrograde period in the winter. Why is this especially USA is involved? Because the seventh house of enemies and wars of USA is in Gemini. So when Mars is in the seventh house, USA is particularly, when Mars especially will be there for 7 months, is particularly likely to be, to be triggered into action, to say against enemies. Some enemy will appear, or some enemy is already there, obviously. And the USA might get involved in some military action of some sort, but there is a new enemy on the horizon or something, so there is a possibility. It's not only in the USA, but we're just saying what happened in 1990. So things don't repeat exactly the same way. They're always different. They always surprise us. Mars especially surprises us. But we're trying to figure out. I'm not a psychic. I'm just like, okay, let's look at the history. Let's see what happened. So let's see what's happening in the USA. But I'll speak a bit later what also Gemini represents, because Gemini is very much about brotherhood and neighbors and fellow people. So people that fellow countrymen. So it smells like civil unrest somewhere in the world. I hope it's not in the States. It's my country of that I live as well half of the time. But I'm just saying the worst case scenario, some kind of civil unrest around the world, where brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, fellow against fellow, because Mars is arguments, Mars is crisis, Mars is fighting, and Gemini is the sign of fellow people, neighbors, neighboring countries, or something like that. Or brother against brother. We have it already happening in Russia and Ukraine, brother against brother. But listen to this, I have some hopeful news here. In October 1990, when the retrograde was just starting in action, when Mars was retrograde, was just turning retrograde, the year 1990, East and West Germany reunified, because Mars goes retrograde, it reverses some situation. And two brotherhood countries, East and West Germany, they're brothers, again, Gemini energy, they were reunited. So if there was already some kind of separation or conflict or tense situation between brotherhood countries, brotherhood states, brotherhood neighbors, even translated to a personal life, some separation or some tense situation with relatives, with neighbors, with friends, even if you say Gemini people from your everyday life, can be reversed. That's the retrograde, motion that it starts from November onwards for us this year. So I have some hope that it's not escalation of the conflict, because it's a conflict that started way before the Mars entered Gemini. Actually, this conflict was foretold between two brotherhood countries, Ukraine and Russia, by the planet comet Neowise, which is always negative symbols in ancient astrology, which passed through the constellation of Gemini, and the big bear. Russia is the big bear, but Gemini is 2020. And such kind of comets, they have a duration, they warn us for the next 10 years. So this conflict started between brotherhood. It started the constellation Gemini, so brotherhood, conflict, and the big bear. It passed through the big bear, poking the big bear. But anyway, now with this Mars retrograde, I'm hoping, because based on what happened in 1990, the reunification of the East and West Germany, when the wall was broken, I told you Mars tears down walls. Saturn builds them, Mars tears them down. So I'm hoping that they can be slowing down of the military action, retracting of this antagonistic thing, not escalations, hopefully. Let's see. You never know. And I'm not Nostradamus. And of course, 1991, when the retrograde continued, was Operation Desert Storm. So that's another option there. Okay, then I went back before 99. When was the previous time Mars was retrograde in Gemini? I'll stay there for 7 months. So not just talking the retrograde period. It was 1949, 1943, and 1944. Part of one year and part of the other. What happened then? And the first thing that pops up is first transatlantic newspaper, Daily Mail. Till then, it was only local newspapers. Then, and it's okay. So that's not a big deal, but I didn't dig too much. But something with the media, something big is happening with the media, some big innovation. Now it's international media. This is the first time media becomes international, or starts, becoming international. So we're starting to think something big will be happening with the media. 1928, the previous time when Mars was retrograde in Gemini again, the first thing that pops up, especially in the period around that, is first ever TV drama appears. So something with media, something big, some big innovation. Till then there was nothing on TV, like drama or whatever. First sound movies and first color movies technology appears around the same year. Crazy. This is huge innovation of the media. So I'm expecting let's translate this to nowadays, something big innovations with media, with social media, maybe some new big players appearing on the horizon, while the old ones, and big competition with media. Mars is very competitive, like information wars there for who is, who has the right to give us the information. Big expansion, it's already, the media has taken over the world. I don't know what more it can do, but maybe some new network or some new social media thing appears that is kind of revolutionizes the access of people to media, for their voice to be heard. And it might be, and breaks down all, even throws out all the necessary sorts of media. I mean, closing of TV channels might be happening, closing of newspapers and news, maybe. And you've seen what's been happening since the last 2 years. People have so little faith in the mainstream media and in the established news information sources, Reuters, whatever. All of this is under Gemini. So now it's, for them, it's when Mars is in Gemini for such a long time, they have to quickly restructure, quickly renovate, or they'll be outdated, and they might expect some big names in media to be closing down. Uh, and but also some new ones to be making big innovations. And of course, there'll be a lot of building of infrastructure for technology, 5Gs, 7Gs, whatever, like cables, that there would be Gemini's infrastructure. Mars is to build something, to change something. So they'll be making ways for extra fast media, or new media sources, or new anything that is connecting people. But we'll keep on speaking after that. Then 1928 is the first NBC set up coast-to-coast radio network. You see, again, spreading, like going viral with information. Mars has this energy of very fast, that something can spread very fast. And I expect, translated this nowadays, not only just some new big innovations with media, whatever, I expect that people wanting to go viral online, whatever, there'll be a lot of some very fast developing trends with information or with something, and people that suddenly shoot up in the social media world, in the media, in the news, like new players coming out, while old ones are being recycled and might fall down from grace, especially such that have abused the truth of information, or have been more aggressive, or have been more, something wrong there. So I expect, like, Gemini rules all media people, TV people, news anchors, journalists, and so on. So watch out. There might be possible that big names in journalism or on TV and so on, and media, or influencers, whatever you want to call it, that especially during the retrograde period, they can be a big kind of like a scandal, because Mars will be squaring Neptune. Neptune is malicious gossip and stuff, or some secret information that comes about such people. And of course, Saturn will trine Mars, and Saturn is the planet of justice and receiving whatever is fair. So there'll be some big names being made, new ones, and some old names that are paying for the wrong use of information, or whatever, unethical, unprincipled, or in their personal life in some way. So watch out for developments there. But let's go back to my historical research. Something else that happens in 1928. A few months after the retrograde, Mars already gets out of Gemini, but it's been there 7 months before that, at the beginning of 1928. But in October 1928 is Black Thursday. The Great Depression begins a few months after Mars retro. It can be attributed just to the Mars retro there, but don't forget that Mars retrograde in the sign of Gemini translate with the visible eye the constellation of Taurus. They have the same names, the tropical zodiac that we use in the West, that is more like the local Earth zodiac, and it's very appropriate for developments on the Earth, for the details. But also there is the big constellations behind that, they're more cosmic. They have the same names, but Mars will be with the visible eye retrograde in the constellation of Taurus, which is, so we have to combine the meanings of both the local Earth zodiac and the more cosmic zodiac of the constellations. The local Earth zodiac is based on the solstices and equinoxes, the seasons. So it's more, let's say, more very relevant for us earthly beings. While the other one is the big things in history, like the ones that, whatever, the eons. So we have to combine both meanings, and a Taurus constellation would be very much about the economy and resources and food and supply and prices. So Mars will be dancing around there, and Mars likes to break down and something that doesn't work through a crisis. Even there might be possible even fights over such things. Let's say like civil unrest, because Gemini rules civilians. And that's why I'm thinking if there is civil unrest of some sort, like lots of protesting or even outright violence in some cases, it will be very much due to the constellation behind Taurus, which is for financial crisis. And you're seeing where it's going. It's like pretty obvious. You say like, oh, you're using astrology to explain your belief system or whatever is happening, but it's very obvious where it's going. And the astrology just says, hey, I'm here. Go put the stars for signs, but can anyone hear me? And we interpret them. So I'm worried. I'm not saying some great depression will happen while Mars is in Gemini and behind the constellation of Taurus immediately. So sometimes it's not the same time. Sometimes it might be a few months later. But even before the Great Depression started, they said that a month before that, while Mars was retrograde in Gemini and in the constellation of Taurus, is when the shake-up and the first signs started happening. And they were kind of there were a lot of warning signs during that time, and that's when the economy was really devastated. The whole other world was already in Great Depression and recession from 2028, from the beginning, even 2027. While America joins, till then they managed to keep it 2028 at the end. So we're in you don't have to be a scientist or an astrologer to see where things are going. Let's see. So that's what I looked at historically, but let's think a bit deeper what can be. So I've made a few notes here. I write when I get inspired on my phone, and I think and I write. So I'll read you a few of the things I wrote. Words, news, and media can be used as weapons to antagonize people during this period. And it's already happening anyway, but now it can intensify. They can be competition or information wars, what people call, mainstream and non-mainstream media. You can see they're clashing in some way. Push to publish, that can be a very vigorous times for people everywhere if they want to publish a book. Mars there will give them a drive, especially try and put the most efforts during the direct phase till Mars 30th. After that, there might be some things to, to consider. Plus, Mars in Gemini is extremely productive in any kind of written literature, reports, anything with writing, with speaking, with media production. So I think we'll be bombarded by by very exciting, fast-moving news. The the pace of everyday life. This is very Gemini. Everyday life will pick up speed, and we'll feel like already from September, when Mars is there, like boom, 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 news all the time, dun, 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 and we have to be very quick to adapt to what's happening. And even if you're not someone who watches news, whatever, you'll be like, social media will bombard you, messages, or people everywhere in the world will get a lot more engaged with their devices, with media, with communications. There'll be something exciting or kind of crisis, big crisis, or many ones on small levels that happen that excite people, and a lot of gossip and news and fake news around that's happening. But also in your personal life, that very speeds up, and a lot of things keep happening. Mars and Gemini is very, very happening, very busy energy that keeps your mind busy. Plus, people might start feeling overload mentally. And when Mars goes retrograde, They can be a big retrieval back, like I want to take my energy back. My mind is going to explode. My head is going to explode. So they'll pull back the energy from the end of October till the middle of January. Like information overload for a little bit, but only to rethink, where do I put my attention? Have I been giving too much of my energy and efforts on gossip, on useless conversation, on gathering with the wrong people that are just wasting my time? Because Gemini is very social sign. About who do you hang out with on a daily, chatting, gossiping, your mate, so to speak. So there'll be a big reevaluation when Mars goes retrograde in our personal lives of who are my friends, who do I hang out with, where do I give my attention. Let me delete 110 apps from my phone and a few games, because I'm just wasting my time. And let me retrieve like a big realization and reassessment that whatever you're putting in your mind, which is very much Gemini, it's forming you as a person. And a lot of people reassess the use of social media, of technologies, their use of where they put their attention and their thoughts. So that can be a great period during the retrograde period, where people can really change their thinking, really reprogram and have a breakthrough and realization by going more introspect and inward to observe themselves in how they act, how they talk in particular, how they communicate with others, where they put their mental focus and attention. But at the same time, it can be very great time of steady verbal, written media communications. People that are in those businesses or work, they'll find themselves very active, very energized in the direction to write more, to speak. It doesn't guarantee quality of the information. It's Mars after all. Mercury guarantees the quality, but Mars will steady outflow, of writing, of communication, of verbal, written media and production, maybe new such media sources to create. But more so, Mars in Gemini likes to micromanage. So we might become a bit more neurotic about micromanaging plans, events, people, to the smallest detail. Gemini is about that. It's a bit of a neurotic energy, so to speak. People, especially who are more predisposed to mentally stress and worry and like, I've got so many things to do. Well, I'm sorry to say, but there'll be an escalation for those 7 months of this neurotic energy around. Rush, rush, rush. When Mars goes retrograde, there'll be reassessment of, okay, those things a little bit. But also Mars in Gemini is very funny. Very, can have like a cutting, timely jokes, fast brain. So expect more humor in the media. Maybe more humorous, something like YouTube's for or like TikTok for humor, or I don't know, something that people invent, and maybe more fun shows on TV about humor as well. And people that want to succeed through humor in some way, that can be their time. Critical, incisive comments in communications, though, because Mars is a jerk in Gemini. According to Vedic astrology, Mars's biggest enemy is Mercury. So Mars does not like to be in the sign of Mercury in Gemini or Virgo. So I don't know if you know people with Mars in Gemini or Mars in Virgo sometimes, especially in Gemini, they can have very cutting things, say things that are biting, that are incisive, that are sometimes they can be fight a lot with people. So expect that people will become more jerky on the social media and in everyday life, where they decide to fight more, they say things they might regret after. Of course, also more funny at some of them. But yeah, it's important to realize that and not freak out too much, because there'll be a lot more of that behavior, even like cyberbullying of any sort. And high school bullying. Gemini rules the schools and stuff. I hope not, but you know. But it's great, Gemini, Mars in Gemini for those 7 months, to brainstorm or to do something very energy requiring and know your focus in a group. So to work in a team where, of course, someone will try to dominate the others. It's Mars after all. But you can get a lot done in those 7 months in a teamwork environment. So if you're planning doing some business, have a team, or you're working on some project in such environment, I think they can, yes, it might slow down during the Mars retrograde, some problems need to be fixed, but by March or April 2023, you'll have some great results. This time will be extremely energized for vigorous mental work and jobs that require that, and getting a lot done mentally. You know, the mind is like super, super fast during that period. But don't forget that Mars will make square with Neptune, the planet of delusion. Square is a hard aspect, so it will tend to give them more negative things. So what are we to look out for already from beginning, from now, from the end of August, September, escalation around November the 19th as well. And again, till the end, fake news, whatever they call gossip. Neptune, Mars with Gemini, that's gossip. That's scandals, scandalous news. A lot more of those. Those who are like to take popcorn and just watch a bit like a soap opera, news and information happening throughout the time, you know. Deception on media, though, on both sides, mainstream, non-mainstream, a lot will be of that. Deception between relatives, be careful, or brother versus brother, or neighbor versus neighbor. As I said, civil conflict or civil unrest of some sort. But talking about the Neptune square with all those deceptions, Mars immediately after that usually keeps holding a trine with Saturn. And Saturn trine is a positive aspect, and Saturn is a planet of correction and morality. So I think if there'll be a lot of lies that are being exposed, lies being told, you finding out, especially during the retrograde period, about some deception or a trick or a lie, but there'll be quickly repercussions. Or if you're the liar, there'll be quickly corrections for you as well because of the Saturn influence. And I'm thinking, yes, problems between relatives and close people can escalate to an extreme level, some kind of civil unrest. But at the same time, something is holding the situation, Saturn, the Saturn trine, and it's holding people more responsible and more reasonable rather than losing their mind in false information and so on, and twisted untruths. And especially, for example, there's some kind of a abuse of information or misuse of information, using information aggressively for own purposes, whether through the media, through or on a personal level. Very quickly, again, as I said, there is a consequences and correction of the situation, or finding out what the truth is, and a possibility to for someone as well, someone more experienced. So if you're, and for example, because Gemini also rules a lot of business ventures, it rules because in the sign of the constellation of Taurus, it can also rules money, but it also rules anything on the internet, like buying or selling things, commercial transactions, and anyone that talks, salespeople. So there can be a lot of like snake oil pushers, you know, the ones that, oh, this is, I'm not talking about the vaccines now. I mean, the ones that try and scam you. So be careful, very careful about online scamming, or someone that says they'll give you money if you just do that for them. And also Gemini rules passwords, emails, all of those things. I expect some very powerful attacks on personal data and personal information, like a leaking a big number of personal data information, especially with secrets there, something that is more confidential because Neptune is involved, something that can be scandalous. It might be even of political figures or famous people on a personal level, or the general population. They can be like some big breach of the internet and information database. Gemini, Neptune connection, Mars. And during the Mars retrograde, it can lead to access to the internet being made more difficult, or the need to change it, whether it's a false flag event that is triggered on purpose, or whether it's a naturally occurring event with this breach of information, or some crisis on the internet, some crisis with the infrastructure and the reaching of information. And there might be big revisioning of the people's rights to have access to the internet, or big revisioning of the rules and regulations and terms of conditions on the internet, on many websites. The government might require more strict measures or more because of this Neptunian dissolving influence, like some kind of authentication. And Saturn trine, I would say Saturn is like legalization or holding you responsible. I think there might be a lot of legal actions towards online bullying or online unethical practices during that time, or they can be aggressive actions to silence people as well. If their opinions are descending, if their opinion are creating too much storm and they're descending to the main opinion and kind of reining in that, and let's take their voice. Mars goes retrograde, taking someone's voice. And sometimes in some cases it might be good someone that has been spreading misinformation or doing not very nice business practices, or or anything like that Geminian. They can receive what they deserve. But at the same time, innocent people or good people can also suffer something that happens with the infrastructure, with the internet, and so on. But definitely all secrets or hidden information will be coming to the surface, especially during the retrograde period. We can expect with Mars and Gemini traffic problems. We can expect infrastructure revisions of some sort. You can expect a lot of digging on the roads. Like, oh, you're going to work. Oh no, all the roads are blocked. They're digging, they're fixing, some pipes broken, whatever. Or they're putting cables for new information structures, whatever. And many of you will have to find alternative routes or alternative transformation system. There might be a push for, and very big decisions being taken on government level, whatever, about the transportations that we use and vehicles that we use. And maybe push like recall of some kind of vehicle or type of thing, and innovation into very different kind of, or something new, improved or new vehicles. Not necessarily, I cannot tell you if it's bad or good. Rethinking the transport system after some crisis. So there might be, and also more accidents on the roads. Be careful, guys. Especially say around the stationary periods of Mars. That's the end of October, the first week of November. That's the second week of January. But the whole retrograde period, and not retrograde, it's like accidents happen more when Mars is in Gemini. Mars is impulsivity, Gemini is traffic and driving. So but also people can feel very, very excited and passionate about learning new skills. Another meaning of Gemini is anything that we learn with our brain, using our rational mind to memorize, to study, whether it's how to knit, whether it's how to drive a car, whether it's anything that needs repeated efforts and that's not a natural talent. For example, learning to play an instrument, learning to do videos, learning to edit, learning to do media something, learning to use some software, learning to operate a machinery, anything of learning. There'll be an invigorated push from September for studying, for updating one's qualifications. And it's not about like some high education. It's more like a practical skills that people want to get. Practical, make fast crash courses and so on. I'll notice. And people that sell classes or training, they can feel a lot of clients now, that a lot of demand for their services that's happening. People that are on media as well, there are a lot of work. People that have to write or speak, a lot of work and projects and new projects that are happening for them. And yeah, okay. Let's go with my writings. Local supply chain issues. Of course, Mars can create such local, and it can be disruptions to local traffic. It might be more difficult, some crisis happening. Well, you see the prices of gas right now, and especially during the retrograde period of Mars, starting from October, the end, there can be, something to do with finding it more difficult to travel, local spaces, more stressful as well. Plus, Gemini, on many levels, is the education system. Learning, especially, as we said, teaching. There might be changes of some regulations and new types of study programs being introduced, innovations, and of course, people never accept too quickly new things, but still there'll be a very fast push to new education system, something with studying that is being restructured, that is something is being destroyed from the old and something new is coming. Plus, I'm a bit more worried for violence in schools. Gemini rules schools and the younger children, places of education and study. Mars is violence. As such an event, whether it's a real, whether it's a planned, whether it's a real, there can be escalation of violence at schools or places of education. You know, I really hope I'm not right. Maybe I have to say all the possible meaning when you combine Mars and Gemini, which one comes out of them. Rules of the internet revision, possible big hacks on the internet. We talked that. Local businesses, Gemini rules businesses, online businesses as well as Gemini. They can be a big bankruptcies happening to some businesses. Mars can destroy, you know, it indicates whether it's a planned destruction from that others want, or whether it's something, a natural process, destruction of businesses, trades, a lot of, even some part of the education system, as I said. And after that, people during that time, people that have their own businesses, they need to really change something and innovate in some way, maybe bring things on the internet, I don't know, whatever it is. Or there can be a lot of bankruptcies and closing down of businesses, and so on. Okay. Exposing the lies, we talked about that, and then truth coming out. Oh, I forgot. Mars is a very social sign. It's the ability to get together, to meet others, to talk, and so on. When Mars goes retrograde in Gemini from the end of October till some part in January, there might be again some restriction to social activities, like pulling back social, people becoming less social, some external that does not allow it. And don't forget, Saturn continues to be in Aquarius. Since the moment it entered Aquarius, which is a social sign, Saturn is especially restrictive. There's been ban on large gatherings, on and off. Sometimes they fall down, but it's a possibility now. Saturn continues to be there, and especially till the beginning of next year. And Mars also goes retrograde in a social sign. Exposing the lies and then the truth coming out, and justice. You know, we talked about that. Or new rules. Business, online transactions, attack on them, bankruptcies. Oh, be careful and guard your passwords, credit cards, such kind of stuff, because there'll be a lot of scammers. And social media accounts, lock them with keychains, with whatever you can, guys, because there'll be an increase, such kind of scams, attacks, downright cyber bullying, downright cyber terrorism of some sort, on personal data information. Try and make your work online, on the media, anything as safe as possible, because these things might be affecting some people especially strongly. Okay, rethinking of commercial transactions for small and big businesses. Any kind of transactions, whether you're moving money from one bank to another, paying for something, whatever, this is very Geminian. And nowadays, it's almost like, because it's in Gemini, they might be like trying to switch maybe from some switch system that you send money to some other. There might be the beginnings of that, of some, for all kind of transactions, changing of the systems that we see. Okay, let's see the weather. Mars in Gemini for the next 7 months. Well, Gemini is air, winds, fast winds, and stormy weather. I expect something with that. And Neptune gets involved, some kind of waves and stuff as well. Let's just brainstorming there. Okay. Many online businesses will have to be rethought, changed, maybe because of changing rules. Anyone who has misused information and facts has to be careful, because they can be exposing of such act. Some big media and TV personalities and journalists might fall from grace, be defamed, or get exposed, but at the same time, it is possible that media sources can create big hoaxes and aggressive, misleading information. Aggressive actions against online bullying, online freedoms and transactions, freedom of speech, fighting against independent or dissenting opinions on the media. Just reading you quickly, we mentioned those things. I just don't want to miss anything that I've written. Stopping or even legally proceeding many websites or personal access to internet if they're dissident in opinion or considered to spread wrong information or harmful information. Many changes on rules of media content and what is allowed. Closing the mouth of certain factions which are inconvenient or dangerous. At the same time, fight for freedom to say what one wants. Fight for the freedom of information. Okay, so we might be entering such a period. Information wars. More aggressive actions towards unacceptable online presence. Appearance of belligerent violence inciting groups and factions online, as well as a big attack on such from governments or whatever. People or groups whose voices have been suppressed, that might be interesting, or censored might fight back and get to be heard, while such which have been aggressively or wrongly spreading the information might be silenced. And also on a personal level, you know that there are people who are bullies with their words. They would always say hurtful things. They would always be biting and critical, and they're more dominating in speech, not necessarily negative people, but they're just like, sometimes they don't even have to say Mars and Gemini. It's not about saying filthy things or painful things. It can be someone that just, you're talking and they keep interrupting you. Like me, I have Mars in the third house, very similar. And they're very verbal, blah, 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 like a mental verbal diarrhea. I can do that as well. Well, people that have this inclination, they'll get like that while Mars is retrograde, even more, but it will put them in some shitty situation, in some unpleasant situation with consequences if they continue to be like that it will feel painful, uncomfortable for them, whether externally or internally. And when Mars goes retrograde, it will be a time for them to really pull back, pull their voice back, pull out their, learn how not to interrupt, not to be biting with their words, not to be hurtful with their words, not to be dominating in conversation. So that will be time for them to rethink their actions and rebalance a bit. This retrograde is always about rebalancing the karma. So if you're such a person, and if you haste to judge, to talk, haste to make comments or speak before you think, there can be some, you can get yourself in hot water, let's say. And I would advise you during all the period, not just the retrograde, think twice before you send press a send message. Before you think it, don't act, think 3 times before you act. Because especially before the period of retrogradation towards October, the end, they can escalation of events because you said something in case, because you sent something in case, like information, because, or even sometimes misleading information that can put you in trouble in some let's say, what is that called? Like complicated situations. And travel with relatives, with siblings, with colleagues, you can get yourself in hot water. But at the same time, people that are always biting their tongue, they're like, oh, and they never say what, they never express their opinions. They're the ones that others interrupt all the time. And they're the ones that never share what they want. They're the ones that, it's like they silence themselves in some way, or they've been silenced by someone else. They will speak up this time. Again, you see rebalancing. A retrograde planet will rebalance. They will speak up and they would say things that they've gathered for a long time. And especially when Mars goes retrograde. So they'll try and take their power back with words. So there is an equalizing. Those that are too high up, too far down with their verbal expression, with their communications, trying to rebalance. So something will trigger them, those that are not speaking up or whatever, again, to take a stance, to defend their opinions, or to fight with words in some way. And of course, I advise you, don't fight with aggressively. Whether you're on one spectrum or the other, both will get themselves in hot water, because even a little bit aggressive action and words and communications with others when Mars is in Gemini, and especially when we'll be there for 7 months and it will get retrograde, will get you in trouble. So use caution. Thankfully, Saturn will be helping with that, with the trine. But again, as I said, a lot of not well thought out And especially because you hear wrong information or you have a wrong understanding of the things, because Neptune is involved with a hard aspect, that you can become biting, or someone else can be biting and critical towards you, and accusations. Mars is accusatory. Um, and there'll be a lot more litigations ensuing between brothers, relatives, and such kind of stuff, or co-workers. There can be more conflicts in the team at work with your co-workers and teammates. But at the same time, on the positive level, people that are in media, that work in small group environments, they can get a lot of work done as well. So let's not forget the good things. A lot of people with writing, speaking, media, if you're learning some skills, fantastic time to learn some skills. Starting from to take a course, to to use, also to learn how to use your hands with something, with sharp instruments or whatever. Anything that involves sharp instruments or any kind of tools is Mars, and Gemini is your hands. Fantastic time for that to pick up. And I think any jobs that use tools and the hands will be very much in demand right now. Okay, I think I've covered a lot of the things. Of course, there's always something I have not fully covered that I'll be like, I'll beat myself up. Illnesses that can happen. Well, Mars is an acute conditions, and Mars that goes for such a long time in Gemini, you have to be careful. Gemini rules the respiratory and pulmonary system. What is that? Lungs. So acute respiratory ones, they can be what they tell us is COVID coming back with vengeance, or some new strand, or I don't know, like the flu season can be especially kind of nasty around this period, guys. And this time the threat is real with this Mars. Nervous system. Gemini also rules the nervous system. So I'd expect that there'll be more acute conditions connected to the nervous system to watch out for. Mars, though, when it enters your retrograde phase, and people say, "Oh, Mars becomes very weak." No, actually, Mars is when it's the brightest then, because Mars becomes the strongest during its retrograde action, but it just doesn't act as impulsively as a direct Mars. It acts more wisely, you can say, or more like a Scorpio Mars, with subterfuge, or with more measured, in more measured way. And Mars becomes strongest during opposition because it's closest to Earth. This is like the full moon phase of Mars. When its light is so bright, it looks like I always compare the eye of Sauron in the sky. It stares at you. And you see, this is always when times are tumultuous. When you see Mars bright right in the sky, and that's when it's the brightest. Now from September till March, you'd find it brightest, but the brightest, it will be October, November, December, and January. And when it's retrograde, it means it's strongest, but it takes extra efforts. So anything you're doing, especially during the retrograde period, it will peak. Especially if you started working on some new project the previous month, you might have started doing it years ago, that you're working on something, that you're preparing for something. Well, now Mars retrograde will peak for you, so you can see the results of your actions. You can see the fruits of your labor, maybe towards January and onwards. Maybe the retrograde period will slow it down a bit, but it will be time for some last very strategic and well thought actions, where you put a lot of energy again that require 3 times more efforts, but it's like some culmination of long opus, or long kind of efforts. And some people can have amazing results after that. You can bring something to a conclusion during this period of Mars so long in Gemini, and while you receive the fruits of it, wrap it up. While for others, there'll be an intense time of crisis and deep realizations, especially if what you've been doing is not to the highest good of everyone involved. So your actions, whatever, or business or endeavor, may need to be corrected or even fully destroyed. Mars can do that. It goes retrograde and says, okay, you've been working on that, but there's no point in that. So destroy. But if you started something and you've put the necessary efforts, the retrograde period you almost like double down the efforts. It's slower moving and more frustrating, but the final results are 3 times more lasting when Mars turns direct, and especially projects in media, in writing, in speaking, in commercial business activities, in doing anything in a small group environment. Say you're a team of 3-4 people. Anything in transportation, vehicle, education, classes, courses, so many things at Gemini. Local businesses, or businesses of any sort. So busy time for those things. Recalibration, okay, we talked about that. I don't know if I should more speak about that, but I think we covered almost everything. Let's take a breather and I'll continue with the 12 signs. Aries, sun, moon, or rising. I would advise you to check your rising as a start, then the moon, then the sun. If you do 3 of them, even better. More times watch on my videos. Okay, you see Mars in Gemini, I'm a typical indication of that, talking too much. Okay, Aries, sun, moon, or rising. This, oops, sorry, I just lost. Okay, so Mars will be in your 3rd house for 3 months. So you'll be, and of course for Aries, it's very important when Mars goes because Mars rules them. So you feel it very strongly every time Mars stays in one sign for a long time. Aries, for them, is very powerfully felt. So there'll be a lot of focus for you guys for the next 7 months. Maybe starting some new media project, communication, learning some skill, and you'll put a lot of efforts, drive, you energize your learning ability. 3rd house is learn new skills, and then you deepen that knowledge during the retrograde period. I'll make a special video, it's only for the retrograde period. But if you can learn something new, if you can, and you'll be required to use a lot of your skills, and you'll be required to use a lot of your mental power, but also your mind can be on overdrive. So learn to switch off your devices before bed, but you can be very productive on writing, speaking, on any announcements, or if you're doing any business meeting, any business activities, commercial activities, go, 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 go. Mars, Aries loves it like that. I think Aries will have a blast during this Mars retrograde, but they have to be careful for conflicts and escalating problems with siblings, sometimes people even sue themselves of fighting with siblings. You might revise during the retrograde period. What do you let into your mind? Who do you communicate with? Delete people. You might cut off people from your life, especially people that have crossed certain boundaries. That will be the reevaluation. Plus, you'll be reevaluating. I had Mars retrograde in my 3rd house in 2020, and during the retrograde period, I had become very vocal against what was happening before it turned retrograde in the world. And for the 3 months retrograde, I stopped being so vocal. I just retreat, and I rethought why I should not be so, I should take things more easy. I should not be so slanted in opinion, let's say, so partial, and so kind of rethinking your a bit more aggressive way in communications, or rethinking who you communicate with. Just be more careful at the end of October till the middle of January about transportation, short travels. There can be complications, there can be delays, there can be things not go according to plan. And not only that, with any kind of everyday daily travels, you might need to find new routes to work, or some problems with your cars, or with laptops, with communication devices. And as I said, be a bit more careful with your communications, because you might be fighting more with your words, opinions, and so on, and clashing with siblings and relatives. There might be some crisis in the life of mates or siblings or relatives of yours, or associates of some sort. And during the retrograde period, we're thinking who are your associates, and so on. Okay, but overall, I think it energizes so much, especially careers connected to writing, speaking, training of any sorts, business, commercial activities. I think you'll get a lot done and thriving, and you'll be personally very motivated. So if you're doing any website, the retrograde period is when something might go wrong and you have to, or some commercial project, or working on some brand or whatever, anything business. well, the retrograde period, you'll be perfecting it, changing a few things. Things might not go exactly but it will, the final result can be even better when Mars turns direct. So for any such things, Mars is fantastic. Plus, Mars also is the ruler of the first house in the third and the ruler of the eighth house in the third. They can be some what can it be? How do we connect the role of the eighth of the third? A lot of communication, some power struggles in communications or secret information that you might be exposing, or that involving a lot of confidential information that you have to be dealing with, and involving a lot of having to know what to do and not to get yourself complicated situation by saying, be careful not to get yourself in complicated situation by sharing things that are not especially that are too private, and you might have to rethink how much do you share with others, because eighth house is in confidential, private. Third house is how much you communicate with others, and so on, to rethink such behaviors. But also you might find some kind of surprising, shocking news, some reversal, and worst case scenario, kind of power struggles with relatives, or some big crisis with siblings, with relatives, or in their lives, or with friends. Touch wood, let's hope, nothing like that. But I'm an Aries, and I just had the shock of my life regarding siblings. It's already started, but yeah, anyway. Okay, so if you are Taurus, sun, moon, or rising, this is Mars will be 7 months in your second house, guys. So you big focus on money. First of all, it will really energize you to creating more resources. It will give you a drive, and like, I want to be more financially independent. Mars is very independent planet. Some of you can take incredibly productive and useful actions towards securing financial independence. Yes, during the retrograde period, it might get a bit hard. Plans might not go according to how you expected it. You might have to shift your approach. That is from the end of October till the middle of January. And there might be some extra expenses with Taurus, sudden expenses and stresses with finances. You can make a lot more money or set a plan to that by the end of the 7-month period. By April 2023, you might have created a new source of income, innovated your source of income, attained a lot of new objects, but also a lot of spendings also happen when Mars is there. So maybe you have to rethink during the retrograde period your spending ways, to reorganize something there, to the universe wants to see how do you cope with situations of more materially stressful situations. I'm not saying you're going to become poor or anything. As I said, Mars can energize, but also create crisis there. You have to be a bit careful with your teeth, because Mars can give inflammation while it's there for the next 7 months. Second house rules teeth, mouth, even the eyes, the face overall, some kind of injuries there, and the voice. So people might lose their voice more often. But it can energize anyone that is in the food production business to do a lot of work, or even yourself, that you get excited and passionate, because Mars is like that, about cooking, about money, and it's in Gemini. You might want to learn more things about handling money, or something precious, or something of value, some assets, and so on. Of course, Gemini, Mars also rules your 12th house. So the rule of the 12th house of expenses goes in the second. So I expect there might be some losses for some of you that you have to deal with, and learn to be more Mars. The ultimate goal of Mars staying so long there, through whatever crisis it brings, is innovate, and be more daring and bold towards money, assets. Don't be afraid, the ultimate goal. But if you're the opposite, if you're someone is totally irresponsible with money, it will kind of you have losses and so on. So again, you have to have totally new approach to money and finances. But also you can spend on foreign things. For example, 12 house rules foreign things. You can spend on in foreign countries. You can spend on things that you can spend on a bedroom. 12 house is sleep. Or you can be spending, there can be some expenditures out of the blue that appear for unknown hidden reasons of some sort. But also some hidden money that you are not aware that you have to some development there. Okay, and Mars also rules your seventh house. So taking the seventh house is other people, in the second house, other people. You might do something with other people that will create more financial independence for you. Or you can do something, other people, your partner's finances, or your partner's actions might in some very powerful way affect your finances as well. You notice, or there might be unfortunately some kind of struggle, verbal fighting with a partner because of resources and finances. It can be a business partner, it can be personal partner. The best thing that I can imagine is you putting mutual efforts with another in regards to some procuring material situation, securing it, like doing something new together. Or maybe it might be good to use an advisor, seventh houses advisors, to help you reinvent and renew your finances in some way. But again, there can be losses of finances through others or because of a partner. That's another possibility. Or stress is there. If you're Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, the whole Gemini, absolutely every Gemini will feel that. Mars is retrograde through most of Gemini, back and forth. Maybe the first 5 degrees Gemini will not feel it. So if you're born the very beginning of Gemini, but all the other Geminis very strongly influence everything that I was talking about. The first hour can apply to your personal life. Wow. Now, if it's your ascendant in Gemini or even Sun, it will totally energize you. It will totally give you motivation and drive. You'd feel like brand new almost. But there'll be a lot of struggles in your life because Mars wants to make you a warrior, toughen you. So of course, Mars will throw at you such kind of more stressful situations, and Mars and God will watch you. How do they react? Do they react like a maniac? Do they fall apart? Do they do 10 things at the same time and don't complete any? Or but it's best for you, again, for you it matters the most to think 3 times before you act, because you might regret some of the things you do. But now will be the time to act, especially till November the 30th. Then when it's retrograde, you'd withdraw a little bit, fix something, change something, but there'll be some new things entering your life, Gemini. Some new exciting ventures, some new initiatives. They might be mental, they might be connected to business, to your personal life as well, especially if the moon is in Gemini. Some new circumstances in your life, but you're initiating them somehow. You're very much involved with that yourself. You're excited about those new beginnings to start, and you're going to feel more drive, more energy to start exercising, for example. Wow, that's a great time if you want. But you can be more irritable as well. There can be big conflicts with others because you are becoming less patient and you want, come on, I want to get things done. No waiting around. I'm fed up. Like, finally time to get organized and to get things done. And Gemini can be a bit dissipated, so Mars can give you this push. And you might be doing even not 1 or 2 things, quite a few things at the same time. That's very Gemini Mars. Also, when Mars goes retrograde from October 30th, don't jump onto new ventures, but complete old ones. You'd get a lot of energy. Things might get, don't leave things unfinished. Mars in Gemini will help you get things done, start new things during the direct motion, and really complete all projects that you started and make them better. And as I said, Mars retrograde requires 3 times more efforts from October to January for you, but the final results can be 3 times more lasting. There'll be a lot of rethinking during that period. What do I want in my life? How do I apply force? Am I giving my power away? How to be more powerful? Or if I'm too pushy and dominating, rethinking of that and learning to balance it out a bit. Looking back at old situations in your life, and something you've been working on, peaking, seeing the results of it, the fruits of it. But on a negative scale, be careful for incidents, cuts, scratches, especially if it's your ascendant in Gemini. Be careful for, it's like the fire energy is very strong around you, for accidents or even inflammatory conditions of any sort, and arguments and fights with others. And it's great for you to do things independently. rather than try to get others involved. Mars will really, when it transits the first house, best do things alone. It think it will go great, you know. Initiate something on your own. Of course, Mars, what does it rule in your horoscope? Rules your 11th house. It can be a possibility that you get very involved, personal action that you put with something that becomes very gainful for you. Because the rule of the 11th and the first is very gainful yoga. Some long-term goal or wish that you're putting efforts and fighting for and being very persevering about, that you are seeing that you know that you have to rethink during the retrograde or edit or perfect. And then there is um, some kind of friends that can either motivate you, that's one side of it personally, or some kind of very personal and vigorous involvement with big groups of people, big business, or with fans or with clients. This is the 11th house. Some big project or some social project that you get involved in that will impact large groups of people as well, that you're very vigorously focusing on. And Mars rules your 6th house, so something with your work that you're very vigorously involved with work, but some kind of accusations as well. Likely the 6th house, the house of accusations, its ruler comes in the 1st house. You might feel kind of some, especially during the retrograde period, some kind of accusations from before can escalate, and some kind of a antagonistic situation can happen with others or people you consider enemies, or with work in the work environment. But also you can get a lot of work done. The rule of the 6th in the 1st for so long, you can even feel a bit drained energetically from all the work, some kind of a overworking type of thing. And on another level, 6th house is health and routines. The retrograde period can get you rethinking your health and routines if they're impacting your health in a negative way, shifting something, changing. And the most positive thing is possibly that it can be a great time for starting some a vigorous thing like a sport, because you want to improve your health. All right. Then if you are Cancer, by the way, I'll be covering those in the September monthly videos as well. So if you're Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is happening in your 12th house. Mars will be there in your 12th house. So the most action you'll see will be in bed. Not so much in your external world. 12th house is the house of bed and what you do in private. It can really energize the sex life, guys, and the desires. 6th house is the 12th house is very astral. It connects us to the invisible world, invisible energies. You can be making sex with succubus and incubus, whatever those demon things. I'm kidding, but it definitely can energize the, especially in the private life of a person. Sometimes 12th house is also indicative of vices, things that we dissipate our energy on. So vices, sometimes they can escalate with Mars is there, drinking more or watching more porn, whatever your vice is, hidden vice that you're not, you're doing it in private. So Mars can really escalate that to the extent that a crisis happens. But then it makes you, when it goes retrograde, you're like, something will force you to reconsider those kind of extravagant, extreme wastes of energy, because vices, that's what it is. Whether you're using your sexual energy, whether you're drinking, whether you're gambling, it's waste. It's a waste of some sort, self-sabotaging and shameful. So you're going to rethink and even be able to rein it in or eliminate it fully. Mars can destroy something. So it can be quite ruthless. The 7 months, first they might escalate, but so you can pay more attention to them. But for many of you, it can be like becoming more ruthless to those weaknesses or your inner demons, as we call them. And literally even fighting with demons. I know people with Mars in the 12th house natally that actually they travel and they fight demons and so on. They remove also entities from us. But your dreams, guys, Cancers, they'll be so invigorated. Your dream life, you might want to sleep more and you'll see like very intense dreams. I remember when I had Mars retrograde in my 12th house, I was killing snakes in my dreams. I was fighting with my dad. It was, for you, but you might be reliving some kind of suppressed aggression, from this life, past lifetimes, during your sleep hours, and that's kind of a therapy as well. But you might feel frustrated on some levels because this is more astral world, invisible world thing. Yes, fighting your own demons is very internal process, but externally you might feel a bit impatient because you're not seeing much developments on the external, especially if you're working to see specific results of your actions. And if you're Cancer rising in particular, very strongly, you feel that. And because they don't materialize, the actions and the efforts that Mars puts, they might feel like they're a little bit wasted. They're not, they're never wasted. But you don't see them in the house of dematerialization. But when Mars enters your first house, you'd see that your efforts will pay off. So it's very good time to use this whole time of 7 months till April to basically, so till the end of March, to prepare for something. And Mars really kind of give you access to forbidden information or secret information. That's one thing, to research something, to dig. To Mars is very penetrating. It's like a sharp tool. So you can penetrate to deep secrets. The 12th house is that. You can find out some deep secrets. You can penetrate into mystery knowledge of some sort. You can penetrate in your subconscious and past lifetimes during that time. 12, that's where they're stored in the 12th house. If you're trying to access into astral worlds, if you're trying to access into forgotten memories or some kind of regression, past life regression, my God, will Mars make it easy. I mean, Mars, it's very, Mars like speeds up everything and gives you sudden breakthrough to understand some memory from the past coming to the surface. And you can have you can even use talk therapy because it's Gemini to help you figure out some self-sabotaging behaviors during those 7 months, and to have some, it's an inner work. You might not see immediate external results, but from April you'll see like almost your life turns around. Oh, if you've been doing some research or some study, this is a great time to kind of close yourself, to study, to research, to try and dig deep. 12th house is very like that. And in the privacy of your time and your home, you can be very productive with that. And then you'll see the results from April 2023 onwards. On a negative level, though, Cancers, be careful for hidden attacks. Be careful for enemies that are maybe even saying some bad things towards you, a slandering of some sort. And I personally advise you, please do not get involved yourself personally in some kind of gossip, because 12th house has this energy as well. And Mars, because you can get yourself in hot waters. You can be in a very researching, investigative mode all the time as well. And it can invigorate you if you are in foreign countries, faraway countries. So taking trips in faraway places, for example. But during the retrograde period from 30th of October till 15th of January, make sure that you have plan B as well, because things can not go according to plan. They can be more stressful. I don't say don't travel at all around that time, but just be a bit more careful. If you've had something planned already and you have to travel then, especially to faraway countries, they just expect that it might not be how you expected it and planned it exactly, but there might be some complications. But it can be very important time where you put a lot of efforts and energy either in the astro emotional psychological world, if you want to work on your subconscious, whatever, but also on your in faraway countries, or doing some vigorous sports in water sports or foreign places. And as I said, I think it will be quite important time, especially if you're someone who works in the privacy of your own home. So, and especially doing something imaginative. 12th house is imaginative, the world of imagination and dreams. And Mars really energizes. So I think people that say creatives of some sort, that have to write poems or they have to write songs, they can be very energized in that direction, or very energized into some 12th house activity. If you're working hospitals, prisons, in islands somewhere, these are all 12th house activities. Or you can find yourself, also because Mars rules your 10th house of career, you might find job abroad in a faraway place. So in some 12th house, some 12th house sphere, like spiritual sphere, for example, can be very energized, or healing sphere, or criminal sphere. The 12th house is a funny house. Or the sphere of hidden sex, or the sphere of imagination, the imaginative world, and so on. Mars is also ruling your fifth house. Ooh, there can be some creative projects. Fifth house is very creative that you're contemplating, or you might be doing some research about a creative project or some private affair. That can be a rule of the fifth goes in the 12th house. Secret house is very sexualized planet Mars. In Gemini, some private secret affairs for some of you guys. Okay. And as well, it can indicate that something to do. Oh, I lost my train of thought. All right. If you are Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, Mars will be retrograde in your 11th house. That's a beautiful house for Mars to be retrograde. All malefic, as we call them, they do great in the 11th house, according to ancient astrology, because this is the house of efforts working hard towards a goal or a vision of yours. So Mars will really energize you towards pursuing some long-term goal and wish that will be, and these goals are not like, oh, I just want to save the world or whatever. Oh, it can be, but they usually have social economic benefits for you, either more popularity or more clients or more money that comes to you. So it's called the house of goals and dreams and wishes, kind of fulfilling your dreams. Well, Mars will really energize you. Come on to get together and go towards pursuing. Is it a degree? The 11th house rules titles and honors as well. So in those 7 months, you can do something that requires a lot of effort and courage in that area. Degree, a title, more gains, to work towards something, to become yourself more marketable. 11th house is very marketable. It's what's hot right now, what's trending, and it's very business oriented. It wants to reach wide audiences. So if you're in any field that you need more audience or more clients, you can be very proactively, even aggressively pursuing such. Of course, it can have its negative side, some kind of crisis and issues with friends or those in your social environment, especially when Mars goes retrograde from October the 30th. You might cancel some of your friends or cancel some of the groups you are with, or rethink, who do I let in my life? I remember when I had Mars retrograde in my 11th house, I had a big fall down with my best friend. And we had to, I was almost ready not to speak to her, but we made it up over the following months, and she's still my best friend. But I energized this 7 months of Mars retrograde in my 11th house when it happened in 2016 and partly into 10 was when my income, and it's not like you sit there on your bum and it happens. You proactively pursue. You receive the drive to proactively pursue, and in my income increase, a lot of new ideas and innovations for increasing the income. But Mars also, what does it rule for you, Leos? It rules your 4th house. Sorry, I lost. Mars rules your 9th house. And in the 11th, there might be some ideological clashes with groups of people about your belief systems. It's like fighting about your belief systems with people in your environment, with people. 11th house is very social house, friends or whatever. But also it's great for sales. Again, 9th house is very enthusiastic. So the rule of the 9th house goes in the 11th for you, Leo. So you kind of, you get some ideas about and actions and you act on them. And something connected to foreign countries can be very gainful for you, or you can have very good gain and expansion if you're teaching something, the rule of the 9th in the 11th, or if you involve foreign places or foreign clients as well, you can become more gainful, or anything to do with teaching and high knowledge. All right. So if you are Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, Mars will be transiting very energized. You're going to feel it a lot, Virgos, in your 10th house. Actually, Mars really energizes us towards achieving a lot. It really increases our ambition when it transits the 10th house, and for it will stay there 7 months. So even if you lazy normally and you don't feel motivated or ambitious now, something will spur you into action If you're Virgo, so if you've always wanted to have your own business, finally you might have the courage to do the structural actions of organizing that business. So if you always wanted to change a job, or something might happen, maybe you're happy with your job, but Mars comes into a 10th house, anything inconvenient will be enhanced because there might be some power struggles with an authority figure, escalation of competition there. But it does not make you want to retreat, interesting enough. You feel very competitive and ambitious as well, so you can get a lot done, and you can get a lot by March, April 2023. You might have taken a few notch steps up the social ladder in a position. There can be a sudden rise, jump as well, but because you put efforts yourself. I remember someone I knew had Mars retrograde in their 10th house. The whole summer they were under deadlines, they were pressured so much during that summer. He felt a lot of pressure from his superiors because 10th house rules such people. And he was working like from morning till evening. But at the end of that period, they gave him a big bonus, and they kind of they promoted him, and actually a bigger company wanted to take him because they saw the results of like the hard work he did. So that can be very great. You can really put a lot of energy into your reputation, into your social, into your career, and so on. You can be very productive. I was extremely productive when Mars was in my 10th house, retrograde for 6 months. That's when I truly made my game big in astrology. But I had a lot of problems with authority figures and people that authority figures and police and stuff like that. So be careful with that. Everywhere police would stop us, and issues and stresses. And also, if you have your own business, you might have to reinvent your business, or especially start, when Mars goes retrograde, or innovate it, because sometimes Mars can really bankrupt you if you're not keeping up with new things, if you don't rethink the vision for it. Also, if you're in a career that is not right for you, some problems can escalate, like antagonism, accusations, and you might end up rethinking that career path and going to some different place, quitting and changing the career direction. But on another level, if you're in the some old career during the retrograde period from October, or project can come up for you to finish it, to improve it, to fix it. If you already have a business, you might have to make it a bit better because something is not working so well. So you need to touch it here and there and put a lot of effort, actually, not just that, to fix it. But also you can escalate, you can see the final results of if you've been working hard on some project in your career. But again, as I said, power struggles with authority figures. So parents are possible for you, Virgos. Let me see what else. Mars rules your 8th house here. Power struggles and big reversals and changes in regards to your career. But I think the final results. Oh my God, this is so funny. That's my ex-husband was Virgo, and when he had Mars in the 10th house, that's a very stressful period at his work, but very good final results. Okay, Mars. I think that's it for Virgos. Oh yeah, and also any careers connected to communication, writing, speaking, because the rule of the 3rd house, Mars also rules the 3rd house of writing, speaking, communications, goes in the 10th house, so it will be very energized. Media, if you're in media, if you're in business, in any commercial transactions or activities, Mars totally energizes your career. And in some extreme cases, there might be some scandal because of information that becomes very public. Some information or news about you can become very public and can stress you out and can create some scandal in extreme cases. But otherwise, I think more like if you have any job connected to 3rd house, writing, speaking, big possibilities, and a lot of action is required from you. But there can be some arguments, as I said, with authority figures and bosses, and or if you work with internet and so on, again, a lot of energizing, a lot of energy there. Libra, sun, moon, rising. The Mars will be for 7 months in your 9th house, guys. I think it's quite nice. sending a trine for you, it's supporting you all the time, unless you have planets in Virgo or Gemini or Pisces and Sagittarius, you're not gonna feel stressed. If your ascendant is Libra, or if your sun is Libra, or your moon is Libra, unless you have planets in but for you, this Mars from the ninth house is quite supportive and expands new opportunities for you for foreign travel. There can be a lot strong impact or something important happening for you in the next 7 months connected to faraway countries, to faraway or to foreign countries, or to getting in touch and correspondence with people that are far away from you. They can also be, that can be time a bit more careful for traveling during the stationary periods of Mars. That's when it's most difficult, around the 30th of November, October, so a week before, a week after, and around the 15th of January, a week before, a week after. Or you might, during the retrograde, because this is when the Mars energy is very stressful in your ninth house of foreign travel, that can be, I think that's exactly when we're planning to travel, and that's my husband's ascendant. So that can be a bit of an unpleasant experience, but it's invigorated that area. So things will happen there. And during the retrograde period, okay, don't go to new places, but go to places you've been before. If you have to travel from the end of October till the middle of January, well, go to places you've been before. And you can be quite active in foreign places and so on. But ninth house is not just foreign places. You can be extremely enthusiastic about learning something new, taking a class or a course or pre-qualifying. You might even rethink the direction of your studies and course and whatever you're studying, or find the teacher that drives you, that motivates you. It's a possibility with Mars becoming so long in your ninth house. Someone that's really like, someone you admire is the ninth house, like teachers, but who also pumps you up and who motivates you. And also learning something that pumps you up and motivates you. A fantastic time to learn something, and some ninth house is also self-improvement work of any sort, where you're studying self-help and studying and learning and so on, expanding yourself. Mars can make you very focused on that and very getting great results with that. On another level, though, ninth house is the house. Well, of course, they can be father figures as Mars in the ninth house. When I had Mars in the ninth house, I had a big blowout with my dad when it was retrograde there. So it was, depends what your relationship with your dad is, or some crisis in the life of your dad, or with such kind of teacher figures in your life. Or you might, when Mars goes retrograde, even rethink who are your inspirations. What higher knowledge do you put in your mind? And what do you let in? What are your beliefs? You can re-examine your beliefs in your worldview during the retrograde period, because Mars can force you through some crisis to rethink those things. And what kind of garbage do you let into your mind and eliminate it? Mars is on ceremony, and if it decides it's not good for him, no. Also innovate your belief systems, or innovate your education. That's the call for the next 7 months. Or innovate ninth house is, that's one thing, because Mars rules your seventh house of relationships with others. Going into the ninth house, you might find yourself fighting verbally more with others because of belief systems, because of disseminating belief systems, especially around the retrograde periods. Be more careful, because there can be some clash with your partner or partners or peers of yours or business partners because of a dissenting opinions. Or that can be something great that happens, is that you do together in a partnership with someone. The ruler of the seventh energizes the ninth house, like you travel together over the next 7 months. Again, be careful about the stationary periods. Or you can do something inspirational together with a partner, something humanistic. The ninth house is inspirational, humanistic, that it's for the higher good. Or you can study and learn. You can get excited to learn higher knowledge with your partner of some sort. Or you can get excited to partner with another to bring out knowledge for others and to work on that project for the next few months. But of course, there is a negative side possible as well. We mentioned some of them. That's another, is that they can be some legal matters. Ninth house is legal matters, the legal system, and some moral dilemma that you're trying to solve as well. Moral dilemma, what is the right thing for me to do? Is that right or wrong? But especially because rule of the seven is also connected to opposition or another person, possibility to be legally prosecute, to get into some legal matter. I hope, and if you're provoked by others into that, try not to react too much. But there is also positive side. Also, Mars rules your second house, Scorpio, and it will be retrograde in your ninth house. That forms, and not only retrograde, 7 months there. So that in Vedic astrology, in ancient astrology, rule of second in ninth is a wealth yoga. So there is a temporary wealth yoga for 7 months fold for you. There can be new inspirations that comes to you about money, how to make money, new horizons. So you're learning about some kind of source of income, that or how to handle money or how to invest, or you are learning higher knowledge of some sort, or with a teacher, or something inspirational about expanding your mind, but also applying it, because Mars is not planet of just sitting around and learning, but you hands-on applying it, some new ideas and knowledge, and with your own intelligence as well, to gain more financial security and financial independence. Of course, again, be careful. There can be some fights about money and resources with others, rule of second, rule of seventh, and ninth, and belief systems. If you're Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this will be happening. Mars will be 7 months in your 8th house. Ooh. So that's actually, there's some very good sides to it, but there's some that sound a bit scary. But for you, it's very important when Mars goes Scorpio, because Mars is one of your rulers, so it's you. And Mars going in your 8th house, but 8th house is natural house of Scorpio. So I think a lot of Scorpios will put a lot of energy into researching something. 8th house is to research, to dig deep and down. And Scorpios already do that naturally. I have my sister-in-law is in Scorpio, and she always, how she does it, but she digs up shit on anyone. She digs deep and finds their secrets, and I'm like you're incredible at that. And it's Mars is just entering her 8th house, and she dug out some secrets in the family as well. And I'm like, oh my God, you're crazy. I love Scorpios, by the way. So you'll be digging out a lot of secrets. This period will be a lot of shocks and surprises. And I think you personally will be involved with revealing this information and personally involved with those secrets. It might be someone else's secrets as well, but I think there is like a big role that you play. And some of you might even to the 7 next months be playing the role of either agent provocateur or interventionists. You naturally are interventionists. You want to shock someone into changing them, but that will be even more so that you use those. And if you naturally have careers like psychologist or whatever, you can be very busy and very proactive, and very, very important time for you for your career. If you're involved in anything 8th house, which is astrology, which is the occult, psychology, digging into the subconscious, which is about crisis management. If you're a nurse in a IER, whatever, you can be very, very like new ventures, whatever, but also during the retrograde period, you can rethink such careers and change in some direction. I think there'll be a lot of information for Scorpios coming to them, especially what do you call it? Such kind of a very confidential and private and even a bit scandalous information that they dig out, some secrets from the past might be revealed that might be stressful and shocking, unfortunately. And there might be the need for some important, deep, private conversations with someone, to clarify that. Let's see what else. Mars rules your 6th house. The rule of the 6th house goes into the 8th house. So critical situations appear, but they're turned for the good. It's a yoga that the evil is destroyed. You receive lemons, but you make lemonade out of them. So it's not going to be easy. There can be some crisis at your work situation, even with health. The rule of the 6th is connected to health. 8th house is crisis, sudden reversal, or in some antagonistic situation, or something connected to 6th house at work. What else is Mars ruling for you, Scorpios? Mars rules your sixth house. Mars rules you as well. Yeah. And some big reversal and change in your life that happens very suddenly. But the final result is because of this Vipritya that we call evil lord in evil house, it cancels itself out, or you turn something negative into positive. But there can be fast-paced changes based on information received. It can be also for you that there's transformation of your appearance during that time. So your appearance changing very fast, like losing weight or whatever, because eighth house, the rule of the first house, which is the physical appearance and the health, goes into the eighth house, fast transformations. They can be a big breakthrough in some psychological stagnation. Eighth house is where we keep those wounds we carry with us from the past. I shouldn't laugh at that, but they're stored in the emotional body and they block the chakras. Eighth house rules all the apertures and exits of the body, and the chakras are seven such. So if there is some blockages in chakras, usually because of trauma, Mars there can speed up the opening of the chakras, can speed up the healing, like a fast healing. Actually, I call Mars in the eighth house like the miracle maker, where there can be sudden spontaneous healings. Because as I said, Mars speeds up um, the trauma that is inside. It comes to the surface because when trauma stays unbothered, it just poisons you gradually, festers at the bottoms. But Mars goes there, stirs it, all the shit comes out. You come out of it a bit raped, but you are healed. Not sorry to use such words, but a bit like spinning. Whoa, what just happened? But there is like a big breakthrough, like a shock therapy, and they can be like a releasing of trauma. As when Mars goes retrograde, you can re-examine yourself, your life, your a lot of your traumas, even working with a psychologist or with an occultant that or occultist or whatever, someone that, or you're on your own, like a quick starting intervention in your and reversal of some situation. But some old trauma can come into your life to be revisited during the retrograde period. Eighth house is as well. So big psychological transformations happening, possible sudden healings, sudden breakthroughs and findings of secrets. It increases the sexual drive, Mars in the eighth house, especially the secret ones. Eighth house is a bit of a secret sex house. And if you already have kind of high sex drive, I don't know, you can get you in trouble, and you have to, when Mars goes retrograde from October the 30th, you might be having to fix those issues, and sometimes Mars in the eighth house can enter us into a secret relationship, secret affair that is quite excitable, a bit forbidden even, but something secret there. Or you can, if you have already a partner, it can increase your libido for you to do a bit more taboo and, S&M kind of stuff. But definitely energize, because it speeds up the chakra as well. And that sex is just energy, and the chakras relate in energy. So for some of you, it can be even opening of the chakras. I don't know. On another level, it's other people's money. Mars in the eighth house can indicate for you Scorpios that you're invested in the values of others, that you invest a lot of energy and time in making money through recognizing the talents of others. And you might, by April, you might receive a lot by having invested yourself and your energies in others' talents, or in others, some kind of, with combining with another's resources and talents in some way. But also be careful, because there might be some deceptions with money for you. That's probably the first thing I should have started, because Mars is squared by Neptune, and Neptune is in your fifth house, especially lovers or someone like this kind of stuff. Oh, romantically, I'm in love with you online. I'm not saying all Scorpio. Scorpio smells this bullshit from far away, but fifth house, when Neptune is squaring from, in your eighth house of intimacy and mutual resources and finances. It's one of the financial houses. So be careful that you're not scammed by people that pretend to be lovers. So there might be some spending, or there might be some stresses because you have extra demands on your mutual finance with your partner, business, or specifically in a family with your marriage partner, expenses for amusements, Neptune in the fifth house, or expenses for children that come up more for you, or expenses for that come up more for you connected to holidaying and pleasures and so on and having fun are possible to appear. But there can be some. I remember when my ex-husband, when I had Mars retrograde in my eighth house years ago, my husband had financial problems because they were asking him to pay a $20,000 bill. He was freaking out, and during the whole retrograde period, he was fighting about his finances. So eighth house is your partner's resources, so your mutual resources. So it was a strain on our resources as well. But at the end, he won. So there can be some fighting about money, other people's money, taxes. Ooh, be careful with taxes, especially during the retrograde. There can be some revisioning, re-auditing that happens. And you have to, when Mars transits the eighth house, to be, hopefully to not to have to get in trouble with taxes. Maybe some expenditure on taxes or whatever, but also you can get you very motivated to make sure you curtail your taxes in some way, legally, of course. Eighth house, there might be some fight about insurances, inheritances that is necessary, about money that comes to you from governments and grants as well. So this is for you, Scorpio. Interesting topics. It's very much eighth house topics are very Scorpionic, some research, some digging, some deep investigation. Fantastic to learn new skills connected to the occult, to psychology, to astrology, eighth house rules, all of those things, to explore your hidden corners and have deep realizations. Or also, it can really, eighth house is hidden money, money that you put, I don't know, stash somewhere in a faraway offshore. And it's also stock market investments. You can be very proactive into such things, getting your taxes in order, or putting money away, like hidden money, or investments, learning something about stocks and market. But you have to be careful, pull back your money, or don't do risky investments after, I would say, even from the middle of October onwards till the middle of January, because there can be sudden losses to investments. And if you already have investments on the stock market, this can be a time when you are rethinking it, you're renovating or making a new approach. There might be some losses again. So again, try before the retrograde to pull out money from the stock market or whatever, or also to research during the direct motion, maybe new investments that you can make and so on. And for many people, it can mean rebudgeting, learning to approach mutual finances and resources in a new way. And maybe some crisis situation triggering that. All right, if you're Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is going to affect Mars in your in Gemini in your seventh house. Sagittarius is directly affected. Let's start with the more difficult. What can it mean? It can mean that you get yourself in conflict in relationships. You can find others that are attacking you more. You can find that others are more intolerant or more biting towards you. You can find that there are fights, verbal fights with others more likely. And especially when Mars goes retrograde from the 30th to the 30th of October, 15th till 15th of August, you might rethink some relationships, end up relationships. Mars can totally destroy something if it's not the right thing. End up, divorce, breakup. Especially if you're not in a happy relationship, that can be time you end it. Or if it's the right relationship for you, you can be asked during the retrograde period to really re-examine it and to rethink the roles that you're playing, to have some deep conversations, to re-examine who is doing what. It can indicate that, so for Sagittarius in particular, in not in the right relationships, there can be sudden breakups, or with business partners, and breaking contracts, and sudden endings of contracts, or there can be the need to re-examine and fix something in such, change the rules, the agreements as well during the retrograde period. One thing it is something stressful can happen in the life of your partner as well, or your partner might be very busy and very energized. My husband had Mars retrograde in his seventh house the whole 2020, and I went a bit bonkers around that time. I was truly, that's Mars energy, so I was very angry about what was happening in the world, and we even had a few very tense relationship situations. Well, I don't fight, I don't shout, but I was very hurt. It was a critical situation. So, but we love each other a lot, and with forgiveness, we worked it out. So definitely such things are possible. But I was also quite angry around that time for what was happening in the world, and I was on a mission, some kind of mission. But yeah, even in a stable relationship, we felt it. Not all the time for 7 months. Actually, it really renewed and improved our relationship after that crisis. So there can be some crisis that happens even in a good relationship that renews it, that makes it even better. But if it's not the right relationship, usually just, Then Sagittarius as well, that it can be great for some things. It can be great if you're to do something together with a partner where you put a lot of efforts together. So instead of trying to do things on your own, try and partner with another, even though the relationship might be more competitive and more stressful, but you can get a lot of things done together. So give yourself a project with your partner or business partner, work towards some project. You can get a lot of things done. Again, there is the theme that there can be something hidden that comes into your relationships, because Mars is the ruler of your 12th house. Scorpio goes into the 7th house of open relationships. They can be, or some relationship can appear from foreign places, or someone far away, or someone private, who knows. Or some secret can come out about a partner, a very close person to you. 7th house is not just people you're married to. It can be a peer, a very close friend. It can be a client. Some secret information that comes out needs to be reworked about another person, about a partner. What does Mars rule for you? It rules the 5th house as well. Oh, there you go. I think a lot of, now let's talk a little bit about the positive. The rule of the 5th goes into the 7th. We'll be there for 7 months. Rule of the 5th is about falling in love. And Mars is horny planet in the 7th house of relationships. I think those of you who want to find a partner, now it will be the time. And it will be especially more sexualized, more youthful partner or excitable partner. It's Mars, or someone that you have strong sexual desire towards. And also you can just notice that you're having more fun and hanging around and new people entering your life that are more youthful, that think differently, or a bit more angry as well, or that they motivate you, or that you're partying. The rule of the 5th is to party, to have fun with someone who is more Mars-like, youthful, motivated, or downright crazy, angry. And you can notice that, for example, you can improve your romantic lifetime by doing things together with your partner, by actively pursuing to, and you might not do it consciously, but you're like, you realize that you feel much more in love with your partner because you're doing exciting things together. I know, bungee jumping or working on some project together, and especially learning some new skills because it's in Gemini. Of course, on a negative scale, you can indicate having verbal fights with the partner because of children, the rule of the 5th, because of your romantic, or because of other kind of, because of your love life. But I think it will just energize you to have more fun with others, not necessarily sexual partner, but to pursue more fun or to do something creative, even inspirational with another person. But beware of the problems that I mentioned are likely. Just all right. If you're Capricorn Sun, Moon, or rising Sun, or Moon, this Gemini, this Mars in Gemini will be in your 6th house for 7 months. So there'll be a big focus on your work. Actually, some of you might overwork themselves. Some important new project can come into your life that can put you under deadlines or stress, for example. And especially during the retrograde period, it can slow down, needs to be edited. You might feel stressed about that, but the final result can be amazing. It can be renewal of your reputation at your work. It can be completing some project that you've been working on and really put a lot of effort and you're very proud of yourself. But on the negative side, it can create more antagonism and more stressful situations with your workmates. or at your workplace, something that you have to fix, something that is constantly interrupting your daily. It's like sixth house is also the routines we have. And when Mars is there, especially when it goes retrograde from the 30th to October to the 15th of uh, no, January, you might find that your daily routines are a bit disruptive. That you have plans, I'll do this, but you have to be ready with plan B, C, or maybe you had a plan that you'll do your work like that. Well, something happens in your work that you need to adjust now. Something changes, or you need to put extra efforts to learn something new to do or to adjust to something. On another level, it can just mean that some old project comes to you when Mars goes retrograde for you to edit it, to fix it, to improve it. Or if you already have uh, animosity with someone, when Mars goes retrograde, they can escalate. Some enemy can come because sixth house is the house of accusations and finger pointing and lack of balance, and even legal matters. So for some of you, it's a possibility, some kind of a legal issues that are happening. So not all of you, but there is a possibility, just telling you, and of course, if you're being provoked and criticized, try not to react so much. It's to spare yourself the trouble. But on another level, malefics like Mars, they love the sixth house because they can do a lot of good there. You can be extremely productive at your work, get a lot of done. You can also, even if you don't have a job, you can be proactively searching for one for the next 7 months and change something in a big way in regards to your job or employment situation. It can indicate that your employees are extra initiative and get a lot of work done, but also it can indicate during the retrograde period there is a lot of fighting between your employees, or if you have people that you employ at home or whatever, or colleagues if you work for someone else. And also during the retrograde period, some of you Capricorns can rethink their work and decide that this is bullshit, I don't want it, and Mars just quits, or maybe you lose a job or whatever. But Mars wants you to innovate there, maybe because you're stuck in a rut. So maybe you need to innovate with some new skills or new direction in a new employer in regards to your career. Or if it's your employees, maybe they're a bit malicious and maybe you have to remove some of them. On another level, though, Mars helps us fight with our enemies when it's in the sixth house for such a long time, which means that enemies will be around. That's not the good news, but the good news is if someone pulls you into a litigation or you enter into some arguments and accusations and troubles with another person, you will be most likely the winner because Mars gives you the upper hand according to ancient Vedic astrology when it's in the sixth house for such a long time. But Mars also can help you tackle health issues. Mars there through some crisis situation, for example, if there's some health crisis, can make you become very motivated to work out, to change your diet. People do incredible things when Mars is for 7 months in their sixth house of health routines. It's not going to be because you love waking up and jumping 1,000 times or doing 100, whatever. At the beginning, it will feel like I have to do it for my health. I have to do it for my mental or physical health or whatever. But yeah, one thing is that there might be more kind of people that you have to cope also with more problems, but Mars is fantastic with coping with problems. Even if you're at home and you don't do anything, there can be extra things to fix. And in your everyday environment, there can be more disruptions, but also you get very energized to get fixed productive things to do. You can get very passionate about medicine, about healing, about helping others. You can be extremely helpful during that time. You can get a lot of things done in a practical way, helping someone else or putting your things in order. And Mars can really energize you to be way more organized, way more cleaner. And it can push you into that by creating some crisis situation that makes you think, okay, now I have to streamline my work. I have to be more like a soldier there. Mars likes rules, likes discipline, likes simplicity, rather than doing 100 things. When you can do one, you can kind of do one thing or 50 things instead. So Mars can help you after first overloading you with work, how to, like an engineer, how to figure out a way to do it faster or simpler. But of course, this process of doing this and figuring it out, because it's triggered by a crisis, can be an unpleasant one, but the final result can be great. Aquarius, sun, moon, or rising. Well, Aquarius, this will be happening in our 5th house. So that's a good house. I mean, I think Leos and Aquarius are the ones that are having, sorry, Libras and Aquarius. Having Mars in a trinal house from your sign, actually, the energy of Mars will be supportive for you, Aquarians. It will give you more physical vitality overall. And it will, 5th house, Mars likes the 5th house because it will energize you more to become more adventurous. 5th house, the house of having fun, amusements. You can go on a spree of 7 months, or at least way more, where you get a bit unhinged, partying, having fun. There can be some consequences, though, that you see during the retrograde period from October the 30th to January the 15th, where you have to see, oh, am I always a bit too crazy? Maybe I should rein it down a bit. Maybe I should find different alternative methods of having fun. So they can be rethinking of that. But also it will really energize your love life. 5th house is known as the house of falling in love, romanticism. Mars there can make you more adventurous, more spontaneous, wanting to surprise your partner. If you're single, definitely way more pursuing others, way more insistently, or having your game on and flirting around a lot more, being more proactive about games, playing, having fun of any sort. And of course, being very active with children. Your children might be quite a bit wilder, more energetic. You have to spend more time with them, but you often also you'll have a lot more energy. And you either purposefully or because of external circumstances be forced to put more energies and activities with your children. On the negative side, there can be some stressful situation with a child that you're dealing with their education or with their health, or I don't know, or with your relationships where there is a power struggle and one of the children acts out more, is more, and so you have to rethink during the retrograde period, how do I change that? How do I, maybe they're having problem at school, maybe they're being, maybe I need to change my approach to our children and our relationship. Or maybe I should put them in sports a lot. That's a good thing. Put your kids in sports with Mars in the 5th house. If you don't have children, that can be a time where you're actively, progressively trying to get pregnant, but sometimes Mars there can be a bit too dry planet, but still it can activate, Also, it can make you very energized, creative. Your creative mind gets energized, your creativity, not only just having fun and playing, but also the ability to enjoy life increases, but also especially hobbies, things that you enjoy doing, you'll be actively pursuing them. And for Aquarians, very much is something about information, writing, speaking, some skills that you're really enjoying doing, or some social activities, because it's Gemini in your 5th house after all, or media, marketing, writing. You might be enjoying, and actually Aquarians naturally have natural talents, because the 5th house is the house of natural talent in Gemini things, natural talent in communication, in spreading information, in media, in marketing, in business. So you might be really enjoying such activities or developing such business. 5th house is to create something on your own, like your own baby, to raise it like a baby. So you can put a lot of focus on such kind of businesses to develop, or in such activities, and you're going to enjoy it, is the 5th house. And you're going to have fun, is the 5th house. But you might have to put extra effort in some creative project or some internet website that you're doing, like I'm doing. That will be, I'm hoping to release it in April. That's exactly at the end of Mars in Gemini. Fingers crossed. So that'd be the final push where you have to put a lot of efforts, and maybe things will go wrong and you have to fix it with some creative project or something that you're growing as your own baby, some creative original idea that you have. You'll be trying to make it happen. In the retrograde period, things can slow down or some problems can emerge, so you can fix them and make it even better, and 3 times more efforts necessary, but you can get great results at the end. Again, just be careful. 5th house can indicate Oh, it can be also great for some creative project connected to writing, to speaking, because Mars is the ruler of your third house of communication. So write something, create something. Oh, fifth house is also teaching. So great for projects, for media projects, for any original creative projects. And Mars also rules your 10th house, goes into the 10th. So definitely even your career will be energized. And you'll have more creative approach to your career, but there can be some power struggles uh, and words with power, some important conversations you have to have with authority figures, because the rule of the 10th, which is authority figures, father figures, bosses, or institutions, goes into your Gemini, which is and it's Mars fighting for such things verbally. Um, and it rules Mars also your third house, communications. So some important conversations might have to be led with such people. Pisces, Sun, Moon, Rising. This Gemini, Mars in Gemini for 7 months in your fourth house. That directly affects you. So there'll be some very dynamic changes and developments in your personal life. Sometimes it can be a bit disruptive because it can entail fighting with friends, with family, with extended families, or having to needing to put a lot of efforts in some way towards the family or towards parenting. It will require, if you're a parent or if you have parents that have some problems and you have to help them, or you might have escalation if you already had problems, especially when Mars goes retrograde, things that you always wanted to say to your family or family members can escalate and be said, especially if you've been bottling it down, and it can be like some bit of a crisis there. Um, but also, some of you might decide to cut connection with certain family members. Some of you might relocate, even because Mars indicates changes, active changes in the fourth house of place of living. Others might have just to put some efforts in their home. Maybe they're building something. Maybe they're something in the house will need fixing more than other times and will need more of their attention. And of course, during the retrograde periods, there might be certain delays about matters regarding property, places of living, documents connected to family and living. Um, but at the same time, it can feel a little bit emotionally stressful because it's a restless energy in your fourth house, Pisces. So you might feel like your family is a bit more challenging during that time, or that you feel restless, you can't sit in one place still. So I would advise you move your furniture around. That's a great remedy for Pisces in your home. And try not to shout at your family, and you have to have important conversations with some of them, but try to do something actively together. Maybe your Pisces, what does Aries also rule for you? Let me just check. Aries rules your second house, goes into the fourth house. You might be actively trying to save money to invest in property, or actively putting efforts for money that will for your family in some way. Or you might be fighting with your family about money. So that's another possibility. Mars also rules your ninth house. So some of you might be relocating to foreign countries in some way. So there is this relocation, this connection between place of living and ninth house, foreign countries. But also ninth house is opinions, your belief systems. There might be some stressful situation. There is a clash between your belief systems and that of your family or the local culture and the local ways. But there is also coming together of foreign places and place of living. So interesting. Let's see how this plays out for you. You can feel a little bit more emotionally triggered easier because of Mars in the fourth house. It's not easy. And it also, Mars from the fourth house directly squares the seventh house. So there is tensions in relationships more. Be especially careful around the stationary periods of the planet, which is around 30th of October and the 15th of January. This is when the biggest things they peak out, and they happen then. So thank you so much. That was it. All 12 signs finally finished. Check me out. Check my new channel, Astrolada, where I have videos only of myself there. And follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Astrolada official is in Instagram. And what else do they say? Like and subscribe, all that stuff. So thank you so much, guys.